When a quiet Tuesday afternoon at my dealership is interrupted by a confused elderly man and a suspicious vehicle return, I begin to uncover a web of deception woven by someone inside my own staff. As secrets unravel and alliances shift, I find myself caught between exposing a dangerous con operation and protecting the reputation of everything I've built. But one courageous act by an unlikely employee sets off a chain of revelations, proving that the truth can't stay buried forever. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss a story. I've owned Belridge Auto Mall for 15 years, and I can say without hesitation, people don't walk into a dealership just to buy a car. They walk in carrying baggage. Sometimes financial, sometimes emotional, and sometimes it's something darker, something they don't even realize they're carrying until you see it leak out, piece by piece. It was just past noon on a Tuesday when I saw him. He shuffled in through the main doors, wearing a tan windbreaker far too thin for the early spring chill. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for a paper folder tucked under his arm. Liver spots ran along the back of his hands like a map of time past. He must have been in his 70s, maybe late. But it wasn't just his age that caught my eye, it was his eyes. They darted around nervously, as if every car on the showroom floor might suddenly lurch toward him. I'd just finished a staff meeting, and from my office upstairs I had the perfect view of the showroom. I always keep an eye on new faces, not because I don't trust my team, but because the dealership business has two predators: dishonest salesmen and desperate buyers. You never know which one will show up first. I radioed down to Jamie, one of my newer sales associates. "We've got a walk-in. Older gentleman near the Camry Hybrid. Go greet him." "On it," she replied. I watched as she approached him with her usual warm smile. Jamie was great with people. Genuine, not pushy. The kind of person who listened more than she talked. I saw him hand her a folder, and then, weirdly, glance over his shoulder like someone might snatch it from him. A few minutes later, they sat at her desk. She opened the folder, and I saw her brow furrow almost instantly. That's when I came downstairs. "Hey Jamie," I said casually as I walked past. "Everything good?" She gave me a tight smile. "Mr. Halbert here was told to bring these in. Says we already processed a down payment?" I froze. "What?" I turned to the man. "Sir, I'm sorry. What did you say?" The elderly man, Mr. Halbert, apparently, cleared his throat. "I put $5,000 down for a blue Altima. I got a call that my paperwork would be ready today." I exchanged a glance with Jamie. We hadn't sold an Altima this week. And certainly not one with a $5,000 deposit that hadn't already driven off the lot. "Who did you speak to?" I asked. "A man named Darren. Said he worked the late shift. Called me 3 nights ago, told me it was the last model at that price." My stomach dropped. We didn't have a Darren. I excused myself and went straight to our internal system. There was no incoming payment from a Harold or Halbert. No notes on an Altima sale. No record of a $5,000 deposit, credit card, check, or otherwise. But when I returned, Jamie whispered something that made the hairs on my neck stand up. "He paid in cash. He says he met the guy right here, outside, after hours. We have strict rules at Belridge. No after-hours deals. Period. Every transaction must be logged, witnessed, recorded. It protects everyone, especially the buyers. But clearly, someone had violated that rule, and worse, done it to someone who looked like he didn't know better." "Sir," I said gently, "do you mind telling me exactly what happened?" He looked embarrassed. "He said if I came in late, I'd get the deal before someone else snatched it. I met him near the back gate. He showed me the car, said it would be mine if I gave him the deposit in cash, said he'd finalize the papers by today. Told me not to mention the timing, off-the-book stuff to save me a few hundred." I took a deep breath. Someone was running a scam, on my property, using my inventory. And they had just conned an elderly man out of $5,000. But who? Sick, I had security cameras, logs, keys were all barcoded and tracked. The scammer had to be one of us, or someone who used to be one of us. Either way, the guilt circled close to home. I reassured Mr. Halbert that we'd get to the bottom of it and offered him a seat in our break room with coffee while we started investigating. He nodded, too tired to protest. Jamie followed me into the hallway. "You think it's someone from inside?" she asked. "I think someone got bold. And I want to know why now. We pulled the weekend surveillance footage. At first, nothing. Then, around 9:45 p.m. 3 nights prior, a man wearing a hoodie approached the back lot on foot. He waved to someone, off camera. Then, a few minutes later, the same blue Altima was driven forward and parked just inside the gate. Mr. Halbert's silhouette entered the lot shortly after, walking carefully across the cracked pavement, envelope in hand. The handshake was clear, the cash exchange. And then, the hoodie man vanished, blending into the night. The footage was grainy, but the walk, the build, even the stance. I'd seen that posture before. I froze the frame, zoomed in. It wasn't clear, but there was something familiar in the way he tucked his chin and limped slightly on the left. It couldn't be. Could it? I called an emergency staff meeting. Some looked confused, others nervous. I need to ask something, I said. Has anyone seen someone back here? Late at night? Who shouldn't be? Maybe an ex-employee? A friend of someone on staff? Most shook their heads. Except one. Diego. A porter. Barely 20. Kind kid, quiet, dependable. But now his eyes darted just a little too fast. His lips pressed tight. You okay, Diego? I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, just tired. But my gut said otherwise. What Diego didn't know, and what nobody else did either, was that a month ago, I'd quietly installed a second hidden camera by the key locker. Too many minor incidents lately. Missing fuel cards, late-night entries, nothing big enough to accuse, until now. I excused myself, ran to the footage, and found something chilling. 3 nights ago, 9:25 p.m., Diego, unlocking the key box, handing the blue Altima's fob to someone else. A figure stepped into frame. Hoodie, face turned away. But just before they left the camera's view, the hoodie man turned slightly, just enough for the light to catch one familiar detail, a jagged scar on his jaw. And I suddenly knew who it was. The scar. That damn scar. It wasn't just any mark. It curved down the side of his jaw like a twisted question mark. I hadn't seen it in over a year. Not since I fired the man who wore it. Dante. He used to be one of my top salesmen. Charismatic, sharp, and as slick as oil on concrete. He could sell a car to someone who just walked in looking for directions. But there were always shadows around him. A few whispered complaints, a weird vibe, inconsistencies in his paperwork. I let it slide for too long, because he brought in numbers. But the day a customer accused him of forging a signature on a finance contract, I pulled the plug. No lawsuit was filed. The buyer settled with us privately. I kept it under wraps to avoid public scandal. But Dante? I told him to never step foot on my property again. And now, here he was, back, using my dealership, my cars, my lot, scamming old men in the dark. I returned to the break room, where Mr. Halbert sat quietly, his hands wrapped around a now lukewarm cup of coffee. I told him, gently, that we had identified the man, that he was a former employee, that I would do everything in my power to get his money back. His eyes filled with tears. 5,000, he whispered. That was all I had left from my wife's life insurance. It hit me like a hammer. He wasn't just buying a car, he was trying to hold on to independence. He was trying to keep living on his terms. And someone used that against him. I called the police, but the moment they heard the cash wasn't handled through our official system, they shrugged. We'll look into it, the officer said, but I could hear the subtext loud and clear. No paper trail, no promises. That wasn't good enough, so I turned back to Diego. I called him into my office and locked the door. He sat down like a kid sent to the principal's office. His eyes darted to the walls, the floor, anywhere but me. You gave Dante the keys. Diego's face went pale. I didn't know it was a scam, I swear. He said you gave him permission. Why would I give permission to a fired employee? He hesitated. He said it was just one deal. Said he needed to help a client who had trouble financing. Said he'd cut me in, $1,000. You took the money? His silence was answer enough. My jaw clenched, but I didn't yell. I couldn't. He was just a kid, maybe legally an adult, but still someone who got played like a pawn in a bigger game. "You need to help me fix this," I said quietly. "You're going to tell me everything. And then, you're going to help me bring him down." Diego gave me the full picture. Dante had shown up at Diego's apartment 2 weeks ago, spinning a story about a new business, private sales, helping niche clients avoid dealership markups. All off record. No contracts. Fast cash. He offered Diego a cut for every set of keys he could get him access to. Just one night a week, he promised. Victimless hustle, he called it. Diego hadn't seen the victims until today. We hatched a plan. I told Diego to text Dante, pretending he wanted in on another deal. He baited him with a lie, that another old man had walked in, asking for a used SUV, said he looked rich, naive, and loaded with cash. The reply came instantly. Friday. Midnight. Backlot. I felt sick. Like this was normal to Dante. Like it was routine. I informed my most trusted staff, including Jamie. I didn't want to involve everyone. Not yet. Not until I knew how deep this went. But Jamie? I needed someone grounded. Smart. Brave. She was more than ready. Friday night came fast. We shut the dealership early, pretending it was for renovations. Left the lot looking empty, but hid a handful of trusted people inside. Me, Jamie, 2 ex-military friends of mine, and a local private investigator who owed me a favor. The police wouldn't bite, so I decided to make this personal. We positioned hidden cameras near the back gate. I even used my phone as a decoy, recording from a cracked window upstairs. I felt like I was filming a sting, except this wasn't TV. This was my business, my reputation, my customer's stolen dignity. At exactly 11:57 p.m., a figure appeared. Same hoodie, same limp, same scar. Dante. Diego stepped out from the shadows, playing the role he hated. "He's in the office," he said. "Old guy, ready to pay." "Sweet," Dante said, grinning. "Easy money." He walked toward the showroom like he owned the place. That's when I flipped the switch. Lights, floodlights, sirens. And Jamie stepped out from the shadows, holding the printed screenshots of the video footage. "Smile, for the cameras," she said coldly. Dante froze. But only for a second. Then he ran. What happened next was chaos. Dante bolted down the side alley. My PI chased him, nearly slipping on the oil-streaked asphalt. Jamie screamed for him to stop. He darted across the street, but clipped his leg on a dumpster and went down hard. When we caught up, he was groaning, his hoodie torn, and his face twisted in fury. "You set me up," he hissed at Diego. Diego didn't say a word. We handed him over to the police, this time with footage, evidence, witnesses. Stolen cash still in his backpack. And best of all, Mr. Halbert's envelope, still sealed, tucked inside a compartment Dante must have forgotten about. The cops had no choice now. They arrested him on the spot. Back at the dealership, Mr. Halbert returned the next morning. He looked like he hadn't slept, but there was something in his eyes. A flicker of hope. A flicker of strength. We gave him back his $5,000, and then, I did something I hadn't done in years. I handed him a key. "For you," I said, "no payments, no strings. Just one condition. Promise me you'll drive it like you've got somewhere worth going." He cried. Jamie cried. Even Diego, watching from a distance, wiped a tear. But that wasn't the end. That was just the start of a much darker unraveling. Because in cleaning out Dante's locker, what was left of it, we found something else. A second phone. And on that phone, 6 more names. 6 more victims. All of them elderly. All of them local. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of what we'd caught, but because of what we hadn't. The phone Dante left behind had no password. Rookie mistake, or maybe he thought no one would ever catch him. There were texts, notes, voice memos. 6 names were listed in a single document, each with a first name, a vehicle model, and a dollar amount beside it. Each line was dated, spanning back 3 months. That's when I realized this wasn't a one-time scam. This was a system, a routine. Dante had built his own black market dealership within the bones of mine. Jamie and I worked through the night, going over every name. The first one, Rosemarie Accord LX $3,000, was easy to trace. She had come into the dealership in early February but left without purchasing. According to one of our service reps, she'd been a little confused and overwhelmed by the financing process. She never came back. Now we knew why. We reached out. Her grandson answered. Said she didn't want to talk at first, but when we explained everything, she finally got on the phone. She thought she'd bought a car. But it never arrived. Dante told her it was being detailed and that the dealership would deliver it when the paperwork cleared. She waited 5 weeks before realizing she'd been robbed. Another name, Edwin Silverado, $4,200, wasn't in our records at all, but he was in our city. We looked him up. He'd filed a police report a month ago about a vehicle scam, but the case went nowhere. No license plate, no dealership receipt. Just a vague memory of a man with a scar and a limp. Dante had been doing this in plain sight, and somehow, no one put it together. Until now. By morning, we had 4 of the 6 victims on the phone. All elderly. All manipulated. 2 had filed police reports. 1 woman had a stroke after realizing she'd been conned. Her daughter said it broke her trust in people entirely. Each story punched me in the gut harder than the last. I gathered my staff again. Some were shocked. Others, not so much. A few, like Jamie and our head of service, Thomas, looked like they'd swallowed poison. How long has this been going on? Thomas asked. At least 3 months, I said. Possibly longer. Shouldn't we go public with this? Jamie asked, and I agreed. But I needed to do it right. By the next day, I'd prepared a full report for the police and requested an official investigation. We contacted every victim we could find and offered them full reimbursement. Even though legally, we didn't owe them a cent. The transactions hadn't gone through our system. But I did owe them. This was my dealership. My people. My watch. I set up a temporary task force. Jamie, myself, and a retired fraud investigator named Becca, who agreed to consult pro bono after seeing the story on the local news. Yes, news. Because we did go public. We held a press conference. Not for PR, for war. I stood in front of a row of cameras and said what no business owner wants to say. We failed to stop a predator, but we will not protect him. I looked directly into the camera. To those watching who have been scammed, even if it wasn't at my dealership, speak up. There's no shame in being targeted. There's only shame in staying silent while others are hurt. The next day, we received 14 emails and 6 phone calls from people across the state. Most weren't connected to us, but 3 were, all elderly, all scammed the same way. That's when Becca dropped the real bomb. This wasn't just Dante, she said, flipping her laptop around. This is a ring. I stared at the screen. There were screenshots of Craigslist listings, Facebook Marketplace ads, all listing cars from private sellers with oddly similar wording. Cash-only deals, limited inventory, late-night pickups, no paperwork, smoother process. Some of the photos used in the listings were taken from our lot. Same angles, same cars, same lighting. Dante was part of a bigger operation. And we'd just poked the hornet's nest. That night, someone tried to break into our dealership. They tripped a silent alarm at 2:14 a.m. Security footage showed 2 men in masks trying to get to the key locker. They weren't subtle. One used a crowbar, the other a set of bolt cutters. Before they could get inside, patrol cars pulled into the lot. They ran, but not fast enough. One got caught, and under pressure, he sang like a bird. He didn't know Dante's full name, but he knew the name of someone else. A former finance manager. From our own dealership. I couldn't breathe for a moment. His name was Scott Riley. He had worked for me for 5 years, left amicably last November to explore a new opportunity. Apparently, that opportunity was crime. Becca confirmed he was running the numbers. Using his inside knowledge of how dealerships operated, Scott had set up dummy listings, funneled money through fake Venmo accounts, and even helped launder cash through a shady car rental company he'd co-founded 2 towns over. It was deeper than we thought. Much deeper. I called Jamie into my office. I need to ask you something, I said. Anything. Do you want out of this? You don't owe me anything. She stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head. No. You don't walk away from something like this. You end it. And I believed her. I trusted her. But that was before the next twist. Before I learned who else had known all along. Because that night, I got an anonymous envelope under my door. No name, No return address. Inside, there were only two things: a flash drive, a sticky note with the words, "She knew. Check the files. D." I popped the drive into my laptop. It held an audio recording, a conversation between Dante and Jamie. The audio file opened with static, followed by a familiar voice. Dante: "You sure you want in on this, Jamie? It's not the usual sales pitch." Then came her voice. Jamie: "Calm. Measured. Not nervous. Worse. Comfortable. As long as no one gets hurt, I don't care what we call it," she said. The clip jumped forward. Dante again. $3,000. Easy. Old guy can barely walk. Just hand me the keys." And Jamie replied, "Make sure it's the Ultima. I don't want this coming back to me." I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. I'd trusted her. She'd helped stop the scam. She helped expose it. And now this? Was it real? Was it faked? I replayed the clip 5 more times, searching for seams, audio glitches, anything that would suggest manipulation. But no. It sounded raw, untouched, like a private recording someone had captured during a hidden meeting, maybe even Dante himself. Why? Insurance? Leverage? Revenge? The sticky notes message echoed in my mind. She knew. Check the files. D. I pulled up our internal records. Jamie had been with us for 18 months. Clean record. No complaints. She often stayed late. Said it helped her clear her head. And that, I realize now, was the crack in the armor. She had access. All she had to do was unlock a few doors, pull a few key fobs, and smile sweetly while someone else got their hands dirty. The perfect accomplice. But why help us catch Dante? Unless she wasn't flipping sides, she was cleaning house, trying to cover her tracks before the net closed in. I didn't confront her right away. I needed more than a voice on tape. I contacted Becca. She ran the drive-through analysis. No metadata inconsistencies, no traces of splicing. "It's authentic," she said. "And if you want to press charges, it's enough to start." But I wasn't ready to press charges. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go. So I gave her rope. And waited. The next day, I called another meeting. Just me, Jamie, and Diego. I told them about the ring. The connection to Scott Riley. The anonymous break-in. I watched Jamie closely. She didn't flinch. Diego asked the first question. "You think Scott was behind all of it?" Jamie nodded. "Makes sense. He always had his fingers in a dozen pies. Too smooth. Too ready. And yet, so convincing. If I hadn't heard that audio, I would have believed her." After the meeting, I told her I needed help sorting security footage from the night of the break-in. She offered to stay late. I said nothing. Just nodded. And then, I set the trap. While she worked in the office, I stepped out, but left a hidden recorder on. Not a phone. Not a laptop mic. A real piece of hardware, courtesy of Becca. I waited in my truck across the street, watching the lot through binoculars. 30 minutes passed. Then, 45. Then she made a call. Not to Dante. Not to Scott. To someone I hadn't expected at all. Someone inside the building. She whispered into the phone, "He's close. Too close. We need to disappear the drive. I'll wipe the system tonight." Then, silence. She left 20 minutes later, smiling. Like nothing was wrong. That was enough. The next morning, I confronted her. In my office. Door locked. I played the audio clip. Her face fell. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just sat down slowly. "I knew it would catch up," she said softly. I didn't say a word, just waited. "I didn't plan to be part of it," she continued. But I was drowning. Credit cards. Student loans. And then Dante came back. Said he had an offer. I told him no, at first. But then he flashed $5,000. Said it was a one-time thing. Her eyes filled with tears. It wasn't. She admitted to 3 deals. All early on. But then she said something unexpected. "I wanted out. I swear. That's why I helped you set him up." I asked, So why try to wipe the system last night? Her lips trembled. Because someone else is still watching. You don't get out just by quitting. You don't know them like I do. My stomach tightened. You mean Scott? She shook her head. No bigger. I leaned forward. Then tell me who. She hesitated, then whispered. His name's Whitaker. I only met him once. He doesn't talk on the phone. He deals in threats. Real ones. That name meant nothing to me. But Becca? Her face went white when I told her. Lucas Whitaker, she said. Ex-military intelligence. Discharged after a federal probe into black market vehicles in Arizona. Disappeared 5 years ago. Last spotted in D.C. laundering money through high-end dealerships. And now, apparently, he was in mine. We brought the information to the police. Finally, they took it seriously. With the audio. The phone records. Jamie's confession. Dante's arrest. They opened a formal case. But Whitaker? Meme. Still a ghost. Until we got one final break. 3 days later, a silver Range Rover pulled into the lot. Unannounced. Untinted plates. Clean. A man stepped out. Mid-50s. Gray hair. Navy blazer. Calm as hell. He walked into my office like he'd been there 100 times. You must be the owner, he said. I nodded. And you are? He smiled. Just a friend of Jamie's. I came to say goodbye. I stared at him. You're Whitaker. He didn't deny it, just stepped closer and whispered. Tell the cops whatever you want. Just know this. People like me don't vanish because we're scared. We vanish because we want to. Then he smiled. And walked out. I ran after him. But by the time I hit the parking lot, the Rover was gone. No plates. No trail. Just a message left on my windshield. You won this round. Enjoy it while it lasts. After Whitaker's warning, I changed every lock on the property, installed new surveillance, tripled the password protections on our software. Some of my staff didn't even know we were being watched. We kept things tight. Controlled. No public statements. No more interviews. But I never slept the same again. Because Whitaker wasn't a con man. He was something else. A ghost with teeth. Someone who knew how to make people disappear. Not physically, but legally. Financially. Socially. He had resources. People. Influence. And he knew I knew. Becca worked around the clock, feeding everything we had to federal contacts she still trusted. It was clear now this wasn't a dealership scam. It was a multi-state operation. Possibly international. Fake VINs. Washed titles. Scam deposits from vulnerable buyers who'd never know they'd been robbed until the day they expected a delivery that never came. Jamie agreed to testify. In exchange, she was granted partial immunity. She moved out of state. A quiet exit. Before she left, she asked me one thing. Do you believe I was trying to stop him in the end? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Redemption, I've learned, isn't always about intent. It's about sacrifice. And she never gave back what she stole. Meanwhile, the dealership became hollow, not just physically, but emotionally. Every creak in the floorboard felt like it echoed with lies. Every deal I closed made me double-check a customer's paperwork 5 times over. Trust had become a fragile glass thing. One morning, I arrived early, before sunrise. The parking lot was foggy, empty, quiet. And there, parked near the entrance, was the blue Altima. The blue Altima. It shouldn't have been there. We'd moved it off-site as evidence. But now, it sat perfectly still, clean, gleaming, engine still warm, and taped to the windshield, a white envelope. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was of me, standing in my office, taken from outside the window, at night. I checked the footage. Nothing. The cameras had all gone black for exactly 6 minutes the night before. 6 minutes of total darkness. Whoever left the photo didn't want to hurt me. Not yet. They wanted me scared. I was. Weeks passed. No more break-ins. No more calls. Dante accepted a plea deal in exchange for giving up a few more names, mostly low-level runners. Scott Riley disappeared completely. A warrant was issued, but nothing came of it. And Whitaker? He vanished again. No sightings, no emails, no more messages. Just silence. But in the quiet, something changed in me. I stopped thinking like a dealership owner and started thinking like a survivor. I hired a new team, vetted, verified, background checked 6 ways from Sunday. I brought in security consultants. I paid for cyber audits. I even installed panic buttons beneath every desk. Some customers noticed the changes, some didn't. But the truth is, we were no longer just selling cars, we were defending trust. Every transaction became sacred, every signature reviewed. Some days I wondered if I'd overcorrected, until Mr. Halbert came back. He drove up in the same SUV I'd given him months earlier. Still pristine, still humming smoothly, he stepped out with a little more spring in his step. He handed me a wrapped package. Inside was a plaque. Wooden. Hand-carved. It read, "You didn't sell me a car. You gave me my dignity back." He smiled and said, "You saved my life." I didn't deserve those words, but I needed them more than I realized. That night, I stood outside the dealership alone. The lights from the lot shimmered across the windshields. It was quiet. Still. And I realized something. Justice isn't always clean. It doesn't come with a bow or a camera crew. Sometimes, justice looks like an old man driving with pride again. Sometimes, it's a scared employee finding the courage to speak. And sometimes, it's just about standing your ground, no matter who's watching. Even if it's someone like Whitaker. 3 months after the blue Altima reappeared, things finally began to settle. Sales picked up. Staff morale recovered. Even laughter found its way back into the break room, though quieter, more cautious than before. I'd stopped checking over my shoulder every night, but I never forgot who was still out there. I didn't delude myself into thinking Whitaker was gone. No, people like him don't just leave. They watch, they wait. But I'd stopped letting that paralyze me. Because in the process of exposing him, something else had happened. We'd built something stronger than security. We'd built vigilance. Becca called one afternoon, urgency in her voice. "They've made an arrest," she said. I nearly dropped the phone. "Who?" "A man named Lyle Winters. Works under multiple aliases. Former Marine. Known affiliate of Whitaker. He was caught trying to launder a stolen vehicle in Pennsylvania. And? He had a contact list on him." My heart raced. "Your name was on it," she said quietly. "And your dealership. But not as a target." I paused. Then what? As someone they lost. A failed mark. It took a moment for that to sink in. Not prey, but a missed opportunity. I wasn't sure whether to be relieved or even more afraid. The following week, I hosted a private meeting at the dealership. Not with employees. With victims. We'd tracked down 9 people Dante or his network had scammed. Most were elderly. A few were middle-aged, but struggling financially. One had even been a single mom trying to replace her totaled sedan. I didn't invite the press. I didn't make a speech. I just gave each one a seat, coffee, and a folder. Inside was a check, matching what they'd lost. Some we'd already reimbursed. Others hadn't come forward until recently. But I paid every one of them out of my own pocket. And in return, I asked for just one thing. Tell your story. Not for me. For the next person. Later that night, as I was locking up, Diego walked in. He'd been quiet lately. Focused. Humbled. I'd kept him on payroll. Part of me debated that decision for weeks. But in the end, I believed in consequences and redemption. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "I want to show you something." He handed me a flyer. It was for a new program he'd started at the local community center. Auto literacy for seniors. Know your rights before you buy. Free workshops. Real talk. Hosted weekly. I figured, he said, if I helped screw people over, maybe I should help unscrew things too. I looked at him. And for the first time, I didn't see a kid who got caught. I saw a man who had changed. About a month later, I received a letter. No return address, no markings. But the handwriting was tight. Military. Methodical. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It read, "You're not the only one who knows how to play the long game. Don't mistake silence for surrender. W." I burned it. Not out of fear, but because I refused to give him the satisfaction. The dealership's new slogan, which we quietly added beneath our logo, was simple. We don't just sell cars, We stand for you. Some customers noticed, some didn't. But the ones who did, they asked about it. And we told them, honestly without drama, that our business had been tested and we came out stronger. One day, a woman walked in with her father, frail, soft-spoken, nervous. She whispered to me while he admired a Civic. He's scared of being tricked. He was almost scammed at another lot last year. I nodded and said, "Tell him he's safe here." He left with a car. And a promise. I still don't know if Whitaker's watching. Maybe he moved on. Maybe he's planning something else. But I do know this. He underestimated something critical. He thought he could manipulate people and walk away clean. He didn't count on one brave employee, flawed as she was, having a moment of conscience. He didn't count on a foolish porter choosing to tell the truth instead of hiding behind excuses. And most of all, he didn't count on me refusing to be quiet. This isn't a story about cars. It's a story about what happens when good people look away, and what changes when just one of them doesn't. So if you're ever faced with a moment where you're not sure whether to speak up or stay silent, let me tell you what I've learned. Speaking up may not fix everything, but silence? That's how people like Whitaker win. And I don't plan on losing ever again. When profit becomes more important than people, even the most trusted faces can turn into threats. But integrity doesn't whisper, it speaks up. One voice can expose a lie, restore justice, and remind us that character is revealed not in comfort, but in crisis. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notification to be the first to know when the next story drops.